In the early morning hours, we caught up with an empty Utah Railway coal train at Carbonville that was en route to the Savage Coal Terminal in Wellington. At Wellington, we observed the train at the coal tipple as it was being loaded for its journey back west. At the time, it took Savage roughly 4 hours to load a 100-car-long coal train. The Utah Railway was incorporated on January 24, 1912. Utah Railway's parent company was United States Fuel, a subsidiary of United States Smelting, Refining, and Mining Company, which owned extensive coal fields in east-central Utah. The railway was created to haul coal from the company's mines to Provo as a reaction to high shipping rates from the Rio Grande. It was originally named the Utah Coal Railway, but was shortened to Utah Railway in May of the same year. The Utah Railway quickly became known for owning the most modern steam locomotives. When first built, its large Santa Fe and Malley-type steam locomotives had automatic stokers, a new invention at the time and a convenience that drew many firemen from the Rio Grande's Utah division to the Utah Railway. In addition, the Utah Railway was the first to equip its air brakes with 14-pound tension springs instead of the then industry-standard 7-pound springs. The company was one of the earliest coal-hauling railroads to employ diesel locomotives and was early to adopt automation technologies, including the use of flashing rear-end devices instead of cabooses. Today, the Utah Railway is owned and operated by Genesee and Wyoming under the reporting mark Utah. Genesee and Wyoming is a short-line holding company that operates 122 railroads worldwide and is known for its bright orange, black, and yellow paint scheme. Utah was acquired by Genesee and Wyoming in 2002. In 2016, the Utah was primarily a coal-hauling railroad, but other commodities included aggregates, brick, cement, building materials, chemicals, and petroleum products. At the time this video was recorded, Savage was the only remaining coal terminal served by the Utah Railway. Due to the changes seen in the coal industry at the time that included strict environmental regulations under the Obama administration, one by one, the mines along the Utah Railway closed. Only one weekly coal train served the Savage facility in 2016. These trains were transferred to the Union Pacific in Provo for the final leg of their journey to the Intermountain Power Project plant near Delta, Utah. Later in the year, rumors began to circulate that the Utah Railway was about to lose their contract with Savage. Those rumors were confirmed in the fall when it was announced that the last Utah Railway coal trains to the power plant would be running through the end of 2016. However, due to the tonnage hauling contract between the Utah and the power plant, the last official train ran on January 16, 2017. We at Delay in Block were unaware of Utah's dire outlook on the coal business at the time, so we didn't consider just how fortunate we were to document this train. Looking back, we're glad we did. While at Wellington, the corporately painted locomotives from the head end were transferred to the mid-train helper crew. Unless they were rearranging the motive power just for us, this move didn't make much sense because it created a lot of extra work for the crews. Nonetheless, we were blessed with an opportunity to document an all red and gray Utah Railway locomotive consist between Wellington and Provo. The city of Helper, Utah was settled in 1881 when the Rio Grande first arrived on the scene. The name is derived from the railroad, since Helper locomotives were tagged onto the rear of westbound freight trains to make the grade over Soldier Summit, the fifth highest railroad pass on a U.S. transcontinental railroad. At the railroad's arrival, Helper began to develop as a population center. By 1887, the Rio Grande had built about 20 company-owned homes for railroad workers and their families, with more built later that year. The railroad planned to make Helper a freight terminal after the rail lines were changed from narrow to standard gauge. The changeover process began in 1889 and was completed in 1891. 1 year later, Helper was made the division point between the eastern and western Rio Grande terminals in Grand Junction, Colorado and Ogden, Utah, and a new depot, hotel, and other buildings were constructed as a result. After catching the train several times between Helper and Soldier Summit, the train stopped for a crew change. This location is at the peak of
the hill. Every division has a hill somewhere that's called the ruling grade. It's the steepest hill on that piece of the railroad. And it's a daily operating obstacle for the railroad running heavy freight trains.
The locomotive leading the train on this day was an MK50-3, originally developed by MK Rail as an MK5000C, a 5,000 horsepower diesel electric locomotive. When it was introduced in 1994, the model was the most powerful single prime mover diesel electric locomotive ever made, a title it held for only 1 year until GE produced its 6,000 horsepower AC6000 in 1995. The MK5000C appears very similar to many 1990s era EMD products, having a fuel tank and long hood that appear very similar to EMD designs. Internally, however, the original designs for the MK5000C shared very little in common with any EMD product. In the early 1990s, MK Rail, a longtime locomotive rebuilder and a division of Morrison Knudsen, announced its plan to compete directly with EMD and GE by beginning its own high-horsepower locomotive program, starting out with a 5,000 horsepower DC drive locomotive, with future plans of offering both a 5,500 and 6,000 horsepower AC locomotive. In response to the MK Rail program, GE announced the AC6000 and EMD announced the 5,000 horsepower SD80 Mac and later the 6,000 horsepower SD90 Mac. A total of 6 examples were built, 3 in August of 1994 for demonstration on the Southern Pacific, and another 3 in August of 1995 for demonstration on Union Pacific. Due to termination of the MK Rail high horsepower program, neither of the railroad companies purchased the model, and the units were returned after 1 year of demonstrations. Production was stopped after the sale of MK Rail in 1996, and 3 more partially built units sat in storage until 2001, when their frames were scrapped by MK Rail's successor, Motive Power Industries. In the year 2000, Utah Railway purchased all 6 units from Wabtec, the owner of Motive Power Industries. However, due to problems with the main bearings on the CAT 3612 diesel engine and Kato main alternator, the units were returned to Wabtec, which replaced the components with an EMD AR11 main alternator. At the same time, the engine blocks were replaced by EMD's 16 645 F3B diesel engines from 5 retired Union Pacific SD50s and 1 retired GP50, giving the locomotives 3,500 horsepower. The 6 units were reclassified as MK50-3s and were returned to the Utah Railway in 2003. Downgrade, we would catch the train several times as it made its way back to Provo. We'd like to thank Bevan Wall Productions for providing audio for this segment of the video. Unfortunately, our audio equipment was malfunctioning throughout the chase. The result was corrupted audio that took away from the beautiful winter scenery. Thanks to Bevan, who chased the Utah Railway in 2014, we were able to dub in accurate audio for the remainder of the video. Go check out his excellent videos by searching for Rock Solid Railroad videos on YouTube. After catching the train at grade level, we set up east of Thistle before the train entered the tunnel off Highway 89. We had to hike down the edge of a steep hill in deep snow to grab this shot. The result was a magnificent view of the valley below. We drove straight to Provo, where we caught the coal train at track speed one final time. Though we were unaware of it, we were watching history unfold before our eyes. 1 year later, coal operations on the Utah would cease forever, or so we thought. In 2020, a revived, albeit limited, coal operation began on the Utah Railway, with weekly 14-car coal trains making the round trip between Provo and Savage. It remains to be seen what the future of the Utah Railway holds. Thank you for watching Delay in Block Productions. We hope you enjoyed part 3 of our Wild West railroading adventure. Until next time, happy railroading.